Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? I'm Julie Livingston of Want Leverage Communications, and I'm back for another installment of Julie's PR Patter. Today's going to be really fun. My guest today is Keri Hecht. Let me bring her on. Keri is head of professional services at Ceros, an interactive content creation platform that allows companies to design exciting interactive marketing experiences without any coding. So they make it very, very easy. And in her role, she leads a team of creatives to support the Ceros customers in creating high-level interactive experiences. Previously, Keri was with Contently, a content development platform, and Carrot New York, an education marketing company, which is where we originally met. So welcome, Keri. It is so great to see you and to have you here today for this conversation about interactive.
Hi, Julie. I'm so excited to be here with you and reconnect. So I'm so excited for our conversation.
Wonderful. So, I would say that interactive content is queen. Notice how I feminized that.
Yes.
Why? Why is interactive content so pivotal today? And how does it connect and engage people?
To me, especially right now, everyone is creating content. Everyone is doing it all the time. There's videos, there's written content. So you're competing with absolutely everyone, which wasn't necessarily maybe the case years ago. People were starting to get into content, exploring blogs. Now everyone is doing it. So you need to catch a user's eye and quickly because we also know everyone's attention span is shorter. So with more engaging and interactive content, you're able to reach your user or your reader much more quickly and easily and get that information across. There's still always the option for that longer form content because some people are looking for it, but you've kind of got to pull people in a more exciting, quick way before you could just present them with this long article. And even then, I still kind of recommend to people to break up and break out little pieces of information that are exciting.
Those little bite-sized pieces of information that you
What's a
want to really stick.
stat, a graph, something that you can pull out because people just don't sit and read at their computer for a long time as much as maybe they had in the past. So,
One of the things that I work on a lot, as a public relations professional and a LinkedIn marketing expert, is building community, right? Because you want to build your fans and followers. You want people to recognize you, or if you're an executive
yep,
leader or a company, you want your key stakeholders to recognize your brand or a particular leader as a thought leader, as an authority in that particular industry space, as somebody who really has information to share, because that makes their brand the go-to, the one that's on, the tip of everybody's
yeah,
tongue. And
right.
interactive just gives you it seems that it gives you such a leg up in kind of doing that.
I think it's important, like you're saying, for people, companies, or an individual to have their voice so their reader knows what to expect. They know they can count on them. They can look at them as a leader in the community or in the industry, and they want to keep coming back for your content. You
Because
have
it's
to hook
fun,
them.
right? Because it's
Yes.
fun and exciting. And so there's just so much going on in your space that I'd love to know more about. It's like, what kinds of things are new and interactive that really engage people and get them to return again and again?
So a lot of what we see, it's that content has to live anywhere. So again, it's not thinking of just your blog, but even on your website, rethinking little pieces of content, micro content, again, linking out to maybe more information. And then really, and this may sound, I don't know, not that advanced, but making sure you're optimized for mobile in every format because that is where a lot of people
I
are
mean, I
reading
I don't I think
now.
that we cannot overemphasize that. Even,
Yeah.
every day I'm on some kind of website on my phone that is just so wonky, and
Right.
it just
How
doesn't fit the
frustrating.
frame. The content is like spacing, the spacing is weird. Like mobile is absolutely paramount.
And it takes a little bit longer to do to, if you have to do 2 versions, but it's worth it. And if people aren't going back to look at your analytics to see where your readers are coming from, you need to. You need to see, are they coming from mobile? Are they engaging with it? Are you making it easy? So really looking at the results once you put content up is so, so important.
Talk a little bit about customization, because I think that that's also really important. Is know well, first of all, knowing your target stakeholders, right? Whether they're internal employees,
Yep.
vendors, potential clients. Um, like how do you approach that?
I think it's important and you
Oh,
have to
I hear
know that
Shelly in the
I
background.
know. This is the joy of working from
That's
home. If
okay.
she hears something in the hallway, she'll stop in a second. Um, you have to know who your audience is, and I think you can't assume what they want to read. You have to learn from. So again, reading analytics and, once you're putting content up there, seeing if they're engaging with it, adjusting based on that. I
Oh, I
always
love
tell
that. I
people,
love that. I just want to
yeah,
stop you, Keri, because I
go ahead.
think, um, first of all, if you could you talk a little bit about what to look for in the
Yep,
analytics,
yep,
and how important it is to be flexible and
yes.
really agile, agile along to be agile along the way, so that you can make tweaks and adjustments to make it more in line with what your stakeholders want. How does that work?
You you should never really just consider a piece of content completed when you're done with
Love
it.
that.
You need to go back to it. So looking at analytics, I don't think you need to be an absolute expert in Google Analytics or anything like that. If you're at least just looking again, like where are people coming from? So how are they getting to your content? What device are they on? So again, if they're more coming from mobile or desktop, and then what are they clicking on? Are they clicking on your links? Are you putting your calls to action buried at the bottom and they're not ever getting to it instead of putting it at the top and,
And
giving
excuse
them
me, and the call
multiple.
to action is critical, because that's what you want somebody to you want them to do something, either go somewhere or provide an answer or engage in some way.
Yeah. And, so like on my team, we're helping our customers, we're designing things for them, but we're always saying we'll build to our best practices, but we do still need to go back and learn about the users, how they're engaging with it. Then maybe we try to put the call to action button in a different spot, and that could change absolutely everything with a small tweak. So you have to be going back and looking and thinking of it kind of as this living piece. And maybe you see again what types of content they're engaging with, and then okay, they love this topic, they love this type, they want these short videos, they whatever it may be, and it gives you so much information to then build out your content plans from
How do
there.
you test do you do testing before you launch interactive content? How does that work, Keri?
I think it depends on the company or the person doing it. I think you have to just be willing to start somewhere, not be scared to do some type of content, and see what works. Test it out. If you're not getting engagement, go back to it. It could also help to reach out to some of your users, your readers, your audience, and see if you can get feedback from them. We always ask our customers for feedback. And, I think not being scared to ask about it and try and put yourself in their shoes. Like, what would they actually want? What is their day to day like? Depending on who it is, you really have to think about how they could want to read content and absorb content and what kind it is. So it's more important to think about them and think about your message, obviously, that you want to get across to them. So it's not just thinking about your one message.
I think one of the important things about requesting customer feedback is being able to take it in. I know that a lot of sometimes I've worked with clients on their public relations or LinkedIn marketing, and they want to get a certain message across, and they don't always want to listen to their targets when they say, well, I don't, that doesn't really resonate with me, or, you know, and so I think as a company, as a service provider, you really have to be open to listening
Yep.
carefully, to every nuance of that feedback and really responding to it, no matter what you think, because it's really what the customer wants.
And there are different ways to get the same message across. So, especially if it's newer for someone using interactive content or a different type of content, you may need to encourage them slowly and kind of show the results slowly because they may be so used to always reaching their audience in one way. And it's about showing, like, listen, we could still get your message across in this way. Let's just try it out. Let's see how it goes. And that's what, like, when I'm talking about even some pieces of micro content, it's not things that take very, very long. So it's easier to do some of the testing rather than spending months on a piece of content.
Keri, can you just elaborate a little bit on what micro content is? I find that that word is often misunderstood.
It is anything that's really like a little piece of content. So, like we were talking about before with pulling out maybe like a stat or a quote, like something little that is
Like
engaging,
almost one thing.
one thing. And if you've got, a huge chunk of content and text that people are reading, but you're pulling out that little piece of micro content, their eyes are going to go there. If it's interesting to them, they're going to read more. People kind of scan a page. It's this Z pattern. So, like where their eyes naturally
Oh,
go. So, it's really interesting to think about. Like, we all kind of read in the same way. So, if you have some text, have that little piece of micro content, like keep someone moving down the page, basically, entice them to keep moving down the page, but again, make sure you have those calls to action throughout because some people might only get through some of it and some may get through the entire piece.
what you talked about some of the factors that come into play when people are viewing content online. How do you know when interactive content is really just not sticking?
I think it might not be right in every single case. And I think it's important for people, again, to kind of start slow with it and not go overboard. So you don't need to be making every single thing interactive, engaging.
That's smart advice, right? Start small.
Start small because if you do too much, it almost is overwhelming to the reader. So start small, try things out. People do still want a lot of the information again, but you don't have to do absolutely everything in a new version. You can always link to a PDF, you could link to other things. So start small and yeah, just don't go overboard because it's then again a confusing experience for the reader.
One of the things that I think, are probably becoming increasingly more in an interactive form are annual reports. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because so many, public companies, 501(c)(3) organizations have annual reports,
Yep.
but they've often been a real snooze, let's face it.
I love that you brought this up. We see so many people with annual reports, and actually, sometimes they are hesitant to think of it in a different way because they've always lived in the long PDFs that maybe are a little bit of a snooze. So, a lot of times, what we'll recommend is think of a little teaser version of it. So, what are those key pieces of information or the messages you really want to get across? You could build a little landing page or whatever it may be on your site, pull out those pieces, and then link to the longer piece. Even like, a letter from our CEO, like something as simple as that, you can actually make that the piece of micro content that entices the reader to click on. So you could still include the really important parts and link out to the full thing, but reimagining it in a different way, I think you're going to get more people actually reading and absorbing the information rather than the huge PDF. You can also get more information from the reader, and are they engaging with those little pieces of micro content compared to a PDF where you might not get the results. If
Yeah.
they're just
Right,
downloading
because
it, you're not really
you can
seeing.
measure page by well, cell by cell or page by page. I'm not sure how you call it.
Yeah, so you can get more information from your user and then learn from that from there. So I will say I think sometimes it is hard for people to make that switch at first. But again, it's knowing you could still have your old form of content, try out this new thing and see how it goes.
I mean, I think what you offer is such a brand differentiator and really, enhances brand storytelling incrementally. You're also one of the things that I do with executives when I'm increasing their presence on LinkedIn is I try to humanize them as leaders. So make them like they're real people, right? And I love the fact that in an annual report, you can now kind of do that by amplifying the message from the chairperson, or, you know, the
Whoever
board
it
of
may be.
directors. Like there are people behind this organization. You could really bring them alive.
They
That's a
need to
brand
know.
differentiator.
Totally. And actually, now that you mentioned LinkedIn too, that's another easy way to think of something for micro content. So you're creating something on your site, pull out that little stat, make it a little GIF, put it on LinkedIn, and direct people to it. Like you need to kind of be creating the content and then thinking again, how are people going to find it? Is your audience on LinkedIn? Don't just put a link to the article, pull them in on LinkedIn even. Like give them something that's a little bit more exciting as they're scrolling through so that they want to click over and read that additional information.
Yeah, and I think certainly if you're using that particular platform, you know, time it, make sure that you're timing it properly so that it becomes sort of a little surprise, I think. Something that's a little unexpected, but eye-catching and
Yep.
compelling.
Yeah. Again, like when do people read? That's another thing you could get from analytics. Like what time are your users engaging with your content? Is it that they're finding you on LinkedIn during the day? Is it kind of after hours? Like, who is the end user that you want to be reaching? Because then you can know when you should be maybe launching new pieces of content or putting something out on LinkedIn so that they're actually seeing it and it's not getting buried behind thousands of pieces of content.
So when you're looking at the analytics with the client, are you do you also recommend that they actually speak to people, or are you just looking at the numbers?
I think the easiest way is just looking at the numbers and making sure then as either a team or, depending on what the company looks like or that person, that they are learning something from that. And you're not going to get all of the information by just looking at analytics once. You do have to kind of look at it over time and see the change. So you need to give a piece of content enough time to see results from it. Even 30 days might not be enough.
Right.
So you need to kind of give it enough time. I think a longer term solution is maybe also reaching out to some of your users and getting some more of that feedback. The thing with feedback sometimes, sometimes people find it tough to deliver tough feedback. So do you do an anonymous survey? Do you do one-on-ones? Like you have to kind of again be thinking of who you're talking to and how they'll best deliver you real feedback, real constructive feedback.
And so my last question is, how can you use interactive content to learn more about your target audiences, your target customers? I've been reading about quizzes and um, surveys and things. Tell us a little bit about that.
That is another great tool because again, it keeps the user on your page longer and engaging, and you can actually gather some information about them. So it can be short little quizzes, 3 questions. and it directs them to the answer page, where maybe then you have it gated and you have to collect some information about the user in order for them to get their response. That's an easy way, can connect to whatever tools you use to collect information about your customers. So that's definitely an easy way. But it's also fun. Like a lot of times, our customers will create holiday cards and it's little games. And so they're not
Love
even
it.
getting information, but they're making their user happy and excited, and they're going to remember that cute little game and they're going to want to come back.
Right, because they're connecting your brand with fun and interesting experiences.
Totally.
That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
Keri, I can't believe we're at time, but thank
I
you
know.
so much for being here today. I think I'm going to ask you to come back at some point so we
I
can
love it,
continue this
Julie.
conversation. And if you want to get in touch with Keri, the best way is on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for enlightening us about interactive and what's going on in the field. Have a great
Thank you,
day.
Julie. So
See
nice
you next
chatting with
time,
you.
everyone, on Julie's PR Patter.
Bye.